feelings can worsen during isolation resulting from COVID-19, flu, or concerns about exposure to other viruses and illnesses. Seasonal depression, also known as seasonal affective disorder, SAD, can significantly impact individuals as they age. For seniors, the challenges of aging combined with the seasonal variations in mood and daylight can create a unique set of circumstances. As older adults may already face issues such as health concerns, isolation, and changes in daily routines, the onset of seasonal depression can exacerbate these challenges. It becomes crucial for caregivers, family members, and healthcare professionals to recognize and address the specific needs of seniors experiencing seasonal depression, offering support, companionship, and access to appropriate mental health resources. Today, we are going to hear from Kren on understanding seasonal depression, coping strategies and insights, and what resources and help are available for you and your loved ones. Welcome, Kren.
Thank you for having me.
Kren, can you start by helping our audience understand what seasonal depression is and how it differs from general depression?
Seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, is a form of depression that primarily affects people during the fall and winter months when there is less sunlight, particularly in locations farther from the equator. So this is the time of year we're at right now. And this lack of sunlight can disturb the internal clock and may lead to feelings of depression. Some people do better with this than others. The change in seasons can also influence the body's melatonin and serotonin, which are natural substances that play a role in your sleep, your timing, and your mood. And when combined, these factors can lead to seasonal affective disorder.
As we enter the winter season, many individuals experience a shift in mood. Could you elaborate on the specific triggers that contribute to seasonal depression?
So what causes SAD? There are certain triggers that contribute to seasonal affective disorder. First one I'll go over is the circadian rhythm. The decrease in sunlight in the winter months is thought to disrupt your circadian rhythms, your body's 24-hour internal clock. And this can cause feelings of depression. Also, levels of serotonin, which are your feel-good chemicals in the brain responsible for mood, can also drop in response to this decreased natural light during the winter months. A hormone that the body makes in response to darkness, which is called melatonin, can increase with longer nights, and this can make you feel lethargic, drowsy, and have an altered sleep pattern that negatively affects your mood. And finally, natural sunlight is a primary source of vitamin D, which is a vital nutrient essential to overall mental and physical health. Thus, we can experience SAD during times of decreased sunshine.
Are there certain demographics or age groups who are more susceptible to seasonal depression? And if so, why?
Well, as I said earlier, those parts of the country farther from the equator are much more at risk for SAD. Interesting, 5% of Americans suffer from SAD. And while seniors do not statistically suffer SAD more than any other demographics, they do have certain risk factors for developing it. For example, as I mentioned before about decreased vitamin D levels, seniors, unfortunately, are particularly vulnerable to this deficiency in vitamin D. So they are more likely to develop SAD during times of decreased sunshine. It's also interesting to note that women, lucky us, are 4 more times to experience SAD than men. And those with a family history of SAD, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? People that have bipolar disorder, major depression disorder, people living far north or south of the equator, where their days are either very short or very long. Those also struggling with substance abuse and those with anxiety or eating disorders. These are all put people at greater risk factors for developing SAD. Another risk factor, especially for seniors, is perhaps having restricted ability to get outside during the daylight hours. Seniors are just more at a higher risk group for mobility issues. for having underlying physical problems that certainly can affect mobility. And then if you have limited mobility, that can also contribute to social isolation, which is another contributing factor to SAD. So the symptoms of SAD are more than just feeling blue or lacking energy on cold winter days. SAD is blue or lacking energy on cold winter days. SAD this is more severe. It involves persistent, pervasive symptoms of depression. These symptoms are feeling of persistent sadness, loss of interest in activities once enjoyed, like I'm not going out with my girlfriend for lunch, I blew off card club this week. It even gets so bad people don't answer the phone when they have loved ones calling them. And that's not typical, right? You could also have loss of appetite. You could have insomnia or other changes in sleep patterns, like sleeping way too much. Another symptom is low energy level. You could be feeling hopeless, worthless, guilty. Like I stated, withdrawal from social connections. You can have difficulty concentrating. I had a lady who say she read the same chapter of her book 4 times. She just couldn't remember what she was reading. And of course, in its most severe form, that could be thoughts of death or suicide. Interesting also with SAD, most often feel tired and sleep more than usual versus just regular depression. They also tend to crave carbohydrates and eat more, which often causes weight gain. And that's depressing in of itself, correct? And symptoms may get worse as winter progresses. So it's not something that usually gets better. The symptoms can just keep getting worse.
Okay, moving into coping strategies. Can you share some practical tips for managing seasonal depression?
So in regards to coping strategies for SAD, there's 4 main categories that I will go over. The first category is antidepressant medications, because as we've learned, SAD is not just a passing blue mood, it is a form of depression. That for many people, if things just don't get better with coping skills, the symptoms will respond to antidepressant medications, particularly the SSRIs, which are the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Long name for that, but it's important to understand that. So those with persistent or severe SAD are advised to consult their physician about possible medication remedies. The second category is light therapy, as reduced sunshine during the winter months have been shown to negatively affect mood. Greater exposure to light makes sense, right? Can be an effective elixir. Ideally, the light would come from the sun, so every opportunity should be taken to go outside on sunny days, even for just 10 to 15 minutes. However, such opportunities can be few and far between. And also keep in mind what I've mentioned about with seniors, with maybe having limited mobility. So that's harder to get outside. They're simply not able to get out. We don't want them to slip and fall on the ice. And so, better stay indoors. So here's where artificial light that mimics the sun can be very helpful. Much brighter than typical lights, broadband light therapy lamps trigger the brain chemicals that improve the mood, can suppress that lethargy, inducing melatonin, and regulate your sleep cycle and provide vitamin D. It can also filter out damaging UV rays so that users can safely soak in their beams for 30 to 60 minutes per day, and it's advised to do that in the morning. And these are widely available and vary in price. I know I have a senior I've worked with for years that uses her SAD lamp faithfully every morning while she says her rosary. She's done that for years. It helps her tremendously during the winter time. In fact, she uses it all year round simply because she loves the benefits. Starts her day off right. She is definitely an advocate for her SAD lamp. The third category is talk therapy, what that means is regular sessions, therapy sessions with a licensed counselor or psychotherapist. And that can be very beneficial to those struggling with SAD or other forms of depression. Various therapies involve talking through emotions, circumstances, and coping skills with a qualified neutral party can be very helpful during these darker months. The final category is vitamin D supplementation. In addition to sun exposure, vitamin D levels can be boosted by foods rich in this nutrient, which are egg yolks, cheeses, fatty fish like salmon, beef liver, milk, yogurt, cereals, and juice. Prescription and over-the-counter vitamin D supplements may be also helpful, of course, upon the advice of your primary care physician. And again, just touching on some basic self-care steps that you can do all year long that can help even reduce your risk for SAD, or certainly help you cope with SAD while you're going through these dark winter months. Getting regular exercise, maintaining healthy sleep habits, including a predictable sleep and wake cycle, eating a healthy diet, and limiting the amount of sugary foods you consume, in addition to avoiding alcohol and drugs, especially while you're battling some SAD symptoms. I know we want to try to self-medicate. Maybe a drink will make me feel better, but we all know alcohol is a depressant, so it's really not going to help you feel better in the long run.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about this already, but how does the lack of sunlight during the winter months actually impact our mental health? And are there ways to mitigate its effects?
As we've talked about before, the lack of sunlight during the winter months is thought to disrupt the body's 24-hour internal clock. And this is called the circadian rhythm, which causes feelings of depression. And another part of this is your levels of serotonin, which are your feel-good chemicals secreted in the brain, which are responsible for mood. This chemical can drop in response to decreased natural light during the winter months. So basically, it's those two factors.
Kren, are there specific therapeutic approaches or mindfulness techniques that individuals could incorporate into their daily routines to alleviate seasonal depression symptoms?
There is scientific evidence that meditation is helpful in the management of SAD. One of the theories is that another cause of SAD is the disturbance of the pineal gland. So this is located in the middle brain that regulates your patterns of sleeping and waking up. Meditation stimulates the function of the pineal gland, regulating the melatonin to promote relaxation. Meditation also increases your serotonin levels, which is that feel-good chemical. And we've all known, meditation definitely just provides a great resource for overall relaxation. It's wonderful. So cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, again, that's a form of psychotherapy that looks at negative and unrealistic thought patterns and helps reframe them to more realistic and positive ones. I also, say you can have as many tools in your toolbox to help you. I always have my clients journal. Journaling can help one track their moods and trends and help people to maybe start to recognize symptoms at the earlier stages, to enable one to start interventions early when it's just a minor issue before a major problem.
Can you explain how seasonal depression occurs in the brain? Specifically, is it a result of neurobiological factors contributing to the onset of seasonal affective disorder?
As mentioned before, levels of serotonin within the brain can drop in response to decreased natural light during the winter months. And this is one of the chemicals responsible for our mood, plus what I just shared about the pineal gland and its secretion and regulation of melatonin. So yes, SAD is definitely neurobiological. And number 9, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, has demonstrated to be the most effective form of psychotherapy in coping with seasonal affective disorder. So again, like I alluded to earlier, this involves recognizing your unrealistic and negative thought patterns, changing them to more realistic and positive ones. And this leads to changes in how one feels and then reacts to stressful situations. It's still like, oh my God, it's so cold and dark outside. Whatever will I do? This is miserable. God, why me? It's like, well, it's dark outside and gloomy. This is the perfect time to curl up on the couch and read that book I've been wanting to read. Little subtle changes like that can make a big difference. As I mentioned before about possible antidepressant medications, one would need to, of course, contact their primary care physician. And in some severe cases, that person would also maybe necessary necessary to seek psychiatry.
For those seeking professional help, what are the key factors of therapy or counseling in addressing seasonal depression?
As I've just mentioned, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, has demonstrated to be the most effective form of psychotherapy in coping with seasonal affective disorder. This involves recognizing unrealistic and negative thought patterns and changing them to more realistic and positive ones. This leads to changes in how one feels and reacts to stressful situations. And this is done, with your skilled therapist or counselor, having a relationship with your therapist, developing that rapport, and then, diving into this type of work can be very helpful. And also, too, what I mentioned about a possible antidepressant medications under the guidance of one's primary care physician. And in cases of severe seasonal affective disorder, it may be necessary to seek psychiatry. And often the primary care physician would point someone in that direction if they felt like their issues were beyond their scope of ability.
What advice do you have for individuals who may be hesitant or unsure about reaching out for mental health support?
A good word of advice for people that are hesitant or unsure about reaching out for mental health support is just normalizing how prevalent this problem is, and then even more important, how readily treatable it is. And thus, there's no reason to suffer needlessly from this at all.
Are there any misconceptions about seasonal depression that you commonly encounter, and how do we dispel them?
That's a great question. One thing I hear frequently from my patients or my patients' well-meaning friends or family is that they do not believe this is a real physical disorder, that someone is just being weak or lazy, that their symptoms is someone merely being dramatic or complaintive, desiring attention, and not realizing this is a true physical and biological disorder. I know, especially we talk about our seniors, a lot of times, this is not in their generation that would complain about things. Let's pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and, I don't want to appear weak or lazy, or I'm not motivated. So a lot of times they're even hesitant to talk to their primary care physician. We'll talk about our high blood pressure or our diabetes, but talking about maybe I have a depressed mood, that takes a little bit more digging. And I do think our primary care physicians are being a little bit more responsive to asking some of these tougher questions.
In combating seasonal depression, what innovative light therapy products or devices are available that can help individuals regulate their circadian rhythm and improve mood?
Well, I do not specifically recommend one type or another of a light box therapy product, but there are tons out there, all different shapes and sizes and price range, located in all our big box stores or via your internet shopping. So there is something for everyone's price range and aesthetics.
Are there specific resources such as online platforms or mobile apps that offer guided mindfulness or meditation sessions that are designed to alleviate seasonal depression symptoms?
In regards to mobile apps or online platforms to help someone with SAD, I have always recommended Calm, Balance, and Headspace are the top three that come to mind. These are easily accessible via our smartphones or other electronic devices. There are tons of options. The new ones are always getting added. And a lot of times there's free memberships and they do promotions, or there's always apps in your Play Store that are absolutely free to begin with. So that's a good place. Everybody's so tech savvy nowadays, especially any of our younger folks. I think it's also important to note the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Call or text 988. We also have something unique in Illinois called the Illinois Warm Line, and that's open Monday through Saturday, 8 to 8 p.m., and that is 1-866-359-7953. And if anybody's not heard of the concept of a warm line before, I'll explain that quickly. It's different than a hotline. So a warm line is you're experiencing some type of distress, but you're not suicidal. You're not in a crisis. But it's also to have an opportunity to talk to a peer counselor or support person over the phone that could walk you through some of your distress. So I do like a warm line. I have a lot of my clients, even during some cold, dark winter days, that will call and talk daily. They will let you call and talk daily for a specified amount of time. Or a person could also contact their local mental health agency in their community to speak to a counselor. Most local community health agencies offer their own local crisis lines as well.
How can individuals enhance their living spaces with products or decor that promote a brighter, more uplifting environment, contributing to a positive mindset during the darker months?
Well, again, investing in a light therapy box is a good option. Other simple ideas include opening up your blinds and curtains, moving your workstation or sitting area closer to a window to make better use of the natural light. Tree branches that block light should also be pruned, and skylights, if you have those are also very helpful. And it's interesting to talk about color scheme. While blue is relaxing and good for anxiety, it's a little too cold for a depression reducing room. So the experts say try pinks, yellows, and oranges, which are scientifically proven to lift the spirits. I used to do social work, home health care visits for seniors for years. And the first thing I would do upon entering a home would be draw back those heavy curtains, open up those blinds. They'd be living like little bats in a cave. And I'd say, this might be blocking, the cold air, but come on, we need some light in here. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. So those are my suggestions.
Are there any nutritional supplements or wellness products that have shown effectiveness in supporting mental health and combating the symptoms of seasonal depression? And how can individuals incorporate them into their daily routine?
Good questions. First and foremost, consult your physician before taking any supplements. But vitamin D supplements can be helpful if your vitamin D is low due to a lack of exposure to the sun. Omega-3 fatty acids, one of the main essential fatty acids in fish is DHA, and DHA is present in high quantities in the brain and is necessary to help promote normal functions of neurotransmitters. Another suggestion is 5-HTP, which is 5-hydroxytryptophan, which is a precursor to serotonin. Another one we all probably heard of is St. John's wort, and melatonin are other suggestions. Melatonin can increase your brain melatonin and suppress cortisol secretion. And we've all heard cortisol is that fight or flight hormone that can cause belly fat. So probably most of us are highly motivated not to develop cortisol.
Kren, where can our audience find additional resources or information on seasonal depression and mental health?
Well, your AARP magazine and Psychology Today are my top two favorites that come to mind. I also personally subscribe to Attitude and Mind, Mood, and Memory monthly or bi-monthly publications. Getting you out and going to your local library as a little outing and research what they have there. You can simply Google SAD on the internet. All kinds of information comes forth. So there's lots and lots of resources out there, and there's a lot of information and studies and coping skills. Very helpful.
Okay. Before we conclude, Kren, any final thoughts or words of encouragement for our audience?
Well, again, it's important to recognize signs and symptoms of SAD and realize that it is a bona fide form of depression, and one does not have to suffer needlessly if indeed one is inflicted with this. This is not simply a matter of willpower or pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, but a true physical disorder that can be treated very successfully.
Thank you all for joining us today. Remember, you're not alone, and there are resources available. Visit aarp.org/Illinois for more information and support. Thank you, Kren, and thank you to our audience for joining us in this important discussion. Remember, compassion and understanding are powerful tools in conquering seasonal depression together. Stay connected, stay informed, and take care. Goodbye, everyone, and this concludes today's virtual event.